Great victory Lise, another chaotic melee ensued. Just when Su Yingxue thought they were in for a bitter fight, the enemy's formation suddenly broke apart, and a thunderous wave of hoofbeats approached. Li Chenghuan's forces were pierced, split into isolated groups, and amidst the crowd, a figure in white armor stood out brilliantly. Wielding a 9-ringed saber, she charged through the thousands of troops with a fierce killing intent. Following her, someone carrying the battle flag of Chu Yihan's army surged forward. The troops were orderly and disciplined, enveloping Su Yingxue and the others in the center, safeguarding them firmly. Su Yingxue was overjoyed. Reinforcements. CC. Unexpectedly, it was Lin Cc. Lin Cc rushed to Chu Yihan's side, knelt down with her saber, and shouted loudly, "Junior Officer Lin Cc has come to the rescue. Please give your orders, Your Highness." Chu Yihan raised the Qingfeng sword and commanded the army, "Break out of the gorge and annihilate the enemy." Standing behind him, Lin Cc echoed with a strong voice, "His Highness commands, break out of the gorge and annihilate the enemy. Break out of the gorge, annihilate the enemy. Break out of the gorge, annihilate the enemy. Break out of the gorge, annihilate the enemy." The shouts were earth-shattering. The troops brought by Lin Cc caused Li Chenghuan's forces to scatter and flee like homeless dogs. Li Chenghuan retreated from the gorge, leading the remnant of his scattered soldiers, gathering 150,000 troops, and with a great force marched toward Jingqing. In the midst of the troops, he shouted, "Attack! Chu Yihan's reinforcements have struck, and Jingqing is unguarded. Let's break into Jingqing, breach their border. Attack!" With the forced distribution of Chu Yihan's army in his hands and a large army behind him, he believed that after Jingqing sent out its troops, its defenses would surely be weak. He intended to charge directly into Jingqing, and once he had seized the city, he would then contemplate how to deal with Chu Yihan. However, he was unaware that in Jingqing, waiting for him, was Su Qingji along with a well-rested army of 300,000. From the moment he began his siege, he was met with a fierce counterattack. He was defeated so swiftly that he had no time to react. Had it not been for his lieutenant who stood in front of him and saved his life, he would have perished at the gates of Jingqing. After his defeat, Li Chenghuan wrote a letter overnight requesting reinforcements from Qi State, but before his letter could be sent out, it fell into Chu Yihan's hands. Chu Yihan did not give him a moment to breathe, joining forces with Su Qing overnight to encircle and capture him alive, and subdued all the soldiers under Li Chenghuan's command. The battle between Qi State and the Great Qing dynasty ended in a swift defeat as soon as Chu Yihan arrived, within just a few days. When the news traveled back to Qi State, the emperor of Qi was so enraged that he fell ill and never recovered, marking the decline of Qi State. After reorganizing his army, Chu Yihan planned to return to the court. The night before, he treated his officers to a grand drink to celebrate their victory. The military camp was bustling with lively scenes. Lin Cc finally got the chance to see Su Yingxue and to embrace her for a moment. "Dr. Su. 9th Princess Consort. I've missed you so much." Lin Cc lifted Su Yingxue up and swung her around several times. The two were as close as two peas in a pod. Looking up at Lin Cc, who was half a head taller than her, Su Yingxue's eyes also sparkled with excitement. "And I haven't missed you. But who would have thought my Cc would transform into General Lin?" Now that Lin Cc had repeatedly distinguished herself in battle, Chu Yihan had appointed her as a 6th-ranked general. Being appointed to the military, she became the first female general since the founding of the Great Qing dynasty, a figure of unparalleled prestige at that time. In the military camp, many generals could not help but heap praise on Lin Cc. Especially General Lin Outyan, who was exceptionally proud. Holding a jug of liquor, Lin Outyan approached Su Yingxue. "I pay my respects to the 9th Princess Consort. Princess, this officer offers you a drink in toast." You must grace me with your acceptance. Men need a sense of security. Lise, Suing Shue took the wine bowl. All right, I'll drink it. Overjoyed, she drank the wine and then remembered to ask, why does General Lin toast me? This time, my brother and I were trapped in the one-line Sky Canyon, and it was Cece who led the troops to rescue us. My brother and I should be toasting Cece instead. She shouted, brother. Brother. Come and toast to Cece. Where's my brother? She couldn't find Su Hao anywhere in the room and frowned, weird, where did he go? Don't bother looking for General Su now. I just saw him go off with the old general. Perhaps the old general needed him for something. The two of us can just drink. Lin Cece wrapped her arm around Suing Shue, leaving her father behind, and went off to have fun on her own. In this military camp, there were only 3 women. She didn't know Luing, so she could only strike up a conversation with Suing Shue. Suing Shue walked arm in arm with Lin Cece, thinking Lin Cece must have something on her mind to share with her. But Lin Cece took her to a quiet corner with few people and whispered, Hey, are you and your highness having a fight? Suing Shue fell silent, not knowing how to start. Others might not have noticed the subtle signs, but Lin Cece, who had known her for so long, could definitely see through them. She seemed somewhat helpless. When we returned from the Great Wei Dynasty, I said a few words to Qin Mayan. After that, His Highness didn't pay much attention to me. Even when we were trapped, he barely spoke to me and even asked me whom I trusted more, him or Qin Mayan. What was your response? Lin Cece suddenly seemed very interested. This was a loaded question. Suing Shue replied frankly, I said I trusted both. They both are rare talented leaders, equally outstanding, and surely both could resolve the situation. Lin Cece, her gaze towards Suing Shue suddenly turned strange, morphing from bewilderment to sympathy, and finally, she heaved a deep sigh. Aren't you just making His Highness miserable on purpose? Men need a sense of security. Your answer totally shattered His Highness' sense of security. His heart must be broken. What? Sense of security. And men need it. Chu Yihan's heart broken. Suing Shue touched Lin Cece's head. You aren't drunk, are you? What nonsense. His Highness is so strong, does he need others to give him a sense of security? Besides, the conversation I had with Qin Mayan wasn't about anything else but rejecting him. She had clarified to Qin Mayan that she was not his cousin, to prevent him from feeling upset, and then they reached a peaceful agreement, after which she returned to Chu Yihan's side on her horse, Chu Xin. Did you tell His Highness about this conversation? No. After you came back, did you act coquettishly towards His Highness, looking for a chance to explain? No. Did the Scarlet Flame King give you any keepsake that His Highness found? He gifted me a fine horse. When I heard my brother was in trouble, I rode faster than His Highness and reached the military camp in no time. Lin Cece smacked her forehead. Well done. You've hit all the sore points. You haven't said a word about what His Highness wanted to know. He already lacked a sense of security, and you just added fuel to the fire quite enthusiastically. If this happened to Jinling, she wouldn't pay attention to me either. She would even give me the cold shoulder and be temperamental. The cold shoulder and be temperamental. Suing Shue glanced back and saw Chu Yihan sitting in the commander's seat, drinking his lonely drink, exuding an inviolable coldness, chilling the entire scene by himself. You two are rebelling. Lise, this is actual performance, isn't it? But Chu Jinling will also. At this point, Suing Shue had to ask Lin Cece for advice. Tell me in detail, why would Your Highness throw a tantrum, and what should I do about it? All I can say is that Your Highness is nervous about you. But when you privately meet with his rival in love, instead of acting coquettishly and softening up to him, it leads to his feeling of insecurity. Acting all tsundere, your relationship, naturally, cools down. As to what to do, Lin Cece scratched her head. Jinling didn't say, and the books don't write about it. I really don't know how to teach you. Su Yingxue was left feeling nothing but embarrassment. Cece, how much bunch of nonsense have you learned from being with Chu Jinling? What do you mean nonsense? This is called a method of nurturing a relationship. Jinling put in a lot of effort, following me day in and day out in the military camp, caring about my daily life. And I also think about him all the time, so both of us are striving for our future together. But as for you, Lin Cece rested her arm on Su Yingxu's shoulder. It seems like from the start of your acquaintance with your highness, it was him who purposely caught your attention, even at the cost of his own life. The amount your highness has done for you is beyond counting, but what you have done for your highness doesn't seem to measure up, does it? In her heart, Su Yingxue subconsciously admitted this. She hadn't been in love with Chu Yihan for many years, nor had she been constantly attentive to his growth. During his years of fighting in the south and north, living on the edge of the knife, she had been growing up carefree, even playing, being bullied, and running around foolishly after Chu Qingye. If not for the hardship suffered in her past life, allowing her a chance at rebirth, she truly didn't know how she could ever repay Chu Yihan's deep affection. So when Lin Cece said this, she agreed wholeheartedly. She also loved Chu Yihan very much, but perhaps not as long as he had loved her. But as for depth of love, she was sure of hers. He was her one and only love in this life. So, you see, you should act coquettish occasionally. Men are all soft-hearted. There aren't many men who can resist a woman's coquettishness and still keep sulking. Like Jinling, if he acts coquettish with me, I have no resistance at all. Whatever he says goes. Lin Cece patted Su Yingxu's shoulder, sharing her wisdom as someone with experience. Su Yingxue didn't know whether she was drunk or had heard wrong. Jinling acts coquettish with you. Have you two got your genders mixed up? Yeah. When Jinling acts coquettish with me, let me tell you, Jinling is seriously cute when he does that, super adorable. That little face, so pinchable, I don't even want to let go. If it weren't for the armor being so hard to take off that night, I would have pinned him down on the bed. Seeing Su Yingxu's mouth agape, wide enough to fit 2 eggs, Lin Cece suddenly covered her mouth. Ahem, well, my relationship with Jinling is different from yours with your highness. I'm a general, and he is a prince. So you've reversed roles. He's on the bottom and you're on top. Seems like it. And he's going to bear children for you. Lin Cece looked somewhat troubled. That won't do. He can't give birth. If he could, I would definitely have Jinling bear me a dozen or so. Both of us want to branch out and bear more children to continue the family line. Su Yingxue clicked her tongue. You two go ahead and continue the family line then. Anyway, noble consort Xiao has money to raise them, and there's plenty of leisure time in Lin Cece's family to take care of children. Lu Ying like Su Haolis, Su Yingxue wished them both a swift blessing of offspring, a nest full for life, and boundless good fortune. But as for Su Yingxue herself, she touched her flat belly and couldn't help but think, if she got pregnant, would going to Chu Yihan with a sweet request bolster his sense of security? He surely wouldn't be angry anymore, right? That's what she thought, but when she tried to stride toward Chu Yihan, his air of coldness drove her back. She didn't even have a child yet. She dared not go. Where could she go? Forget it, let's go see Grandpa and brother. She walked to where Su Qingji was, shaking Xian'er along the way. Although Su Qingzi's voice wasn't loud, one could hear that he was scolding Su Hao. Since you were young, you've always been steady. A few mistakes could make you even more outstanding, but what exactly were you thinking this time? Who in the enemy ranks so bewildered you that you recklessly threw yourself into their trap? Do you understand that if not for Lu Ying, you would have already perished at the enemy's hands, and because of you, a young girl also suffered serious injury. Those 2 scars on her back, how is she supposed to marry well now? She is the daughter of Lu Chongming, and the Lu family's contributions to the state, earned through generations of service, are no less than those of our Marquis Manor. Think about it, how heartbroken must Lu Chongming be over his daughter? Grandfather, I have let down Lu Ying. I will compensate her. I'll acknowledge her as my sister and provide her with a generous dowry. All my merits can be given to the Lu family. Su Hao knelt before Su Qingji, earnestly admitting his fault. Su Qingji sighed softly. If the Lu family is willing to agree, then that's settled, but today when I went to see Lu Ying, that young girl knelt down and appealed to me, saying her heart is pleased with you and in this lifetime, she only wishes to marry you. If you're willing, then take her as your wife. That must never happen. Su Hao immediately refused. Grandfather, I have no romantic feelings for Lu Ying. Since meeting her at the border, I've always treated her as a friend. She is a capable military family's daughter, she shouldn't have to settle for me. She can indeed marry someone worthily, but now she bears scars on her body, and with you also, grandfather. Su Yingxue burst in. She bounced up to Su Qingji, wrapped around his arm, and coquettishly smiled. Grandpa can rest assured. I can heal the scars on Miss Lu's back, ensuring her skin will be as smooth and flawless as new, so no one will reject her for them. Is this really possible? Su Qingji was curious and somewhat surprised. Does Grandpa not trust my mother? Or does he not trust me? Su Yingxue pouted and swung his arm to act like a spoiled child. Of course, I trust you. Then I'll leave this matter in your hands. Remember, you must heal Lu Ying to ensure she's scarless, or else it will affect her prospects for marriage, and we at the Marquis Manor would feel guilty for not treating her properly. Su Qingji emphasized. Rest assured, Grandpa, I will definitely heal Miss Lu. And as for brother, let him get up soon, he's also seriously injured and hasn't recovered yet. Su Hao kept his head down, kneeling on the ground. You don't need to plead for me. I must bear the consequences of my own mistakes. Chui Han still had a punishment for him, and he needed to accept his grandpa's penalty before seeking out Chui Han. Alright, punishment can wait until you're well. The army will soon be returning to the court, just don't delay His Highness' military progress. Go rest now. Su Qingji waved his hand, dismissing Su Hao. The aloof Chui Han Lis, Su Hao patted Su Yingxue's head and smiled before turning around to leave. Leaning against Su Qingji, Su Yingxue squinted her eyes with a mischievous grin. You purposely sent brother away, Grandpa. Do you have some secret to tell me? You little rascal. Su Qingji gently tweaked her nose, his eyes filled with indulgence. Grandpa indeed has something to tell you, and it's about your brother. Does Grandpa want to ask about brother, Lu Ying, and sister-in-law? Su Yingxue had been a bit tipsy, and still felt somewhat lightheaded. But now, she perked up immediately. The fact that Miss Lu likes Howard is well known by now. I find it hard to see this ending well, but as for your sister-in-law, I haven't met her yet. Caressing his beard, Su Qingzi's expression was quite meaningful. Originally, when he heard about this marriage proposition, he wasn't opposed to it, as he trusted Su Hao's judgment. Upon returning to Jiangdu City, even though he hadn't met her yet, he sent Su Wei to inquire and learned that the owner of the Thousand-Jia Pavilion was a shrewd and capable woman, very impressive and also a beauty. This made him even more pleased. Even if Wu Jinyan didn't have much of a family background, which could lead to criticism, he felt that as long as the young woman was competent and a good match for Su Hao, he would strongly support them. However, during this military campaign, he also received some unsettling news. Su Hao fell into a trap that seemed to have been set by the enemy using Wu Jinyan's situation to provoke Su Hao, which led to his decision to send troops, especially princely Qinghuan. It was said that before deploying the troops, Su Hao had exchanged letters with him. But from Su Hao's side, he wouldn't disclose anything, and naturally, the letters were not accessible. It wasn't appropriate for Su Qingji to delve into rumors spreading in the military. The only option was to send Su Yingxue, "You're a young girl, and the army will still need some time before returning to the capital. You should head back to Jiangdu City first to see what exactly happened with your sister-in-law and how it relates to the current conflict. Once you have the details, come back and report to Grandpa." This was the task he entrusted to Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue nodded, "All right, Grandpa. I will sneak back and see sister-in-law to find out what misunderstandings there are between her and brother. When you return, you'll find an opportunity to introduce sister-in-law to you. She is a beautiful and kind woman, you will certainly like her." "Good, I trust both of your judgments." Su Qingji patted Su Yingxue's hand, his face beaming with a smile. Accepting this mission meant that Su Yingxue needed to leave ahead of the main army, which also meant she would need to part with Chu Yihan for some time. So that night, she quietly slipped into Chu Yihan's tent. Technically, Chu Yihan's territory was hers as well, but sneaking back to her own bedding, she still moved covertly. Chu Yihan had drunk quite a bit that night and lay heavily on the bed, reeking of alcohol. He rolled over, pinning Su Yingxue beneath him, and she almost cried out loud. But hearing his steady breathing, she couldn't bear to wake him, so she let him be. As dawn was about to break, Su Yingxue too turned over, ending up on top of Chu Yihan. Somehow, as the sky lightened with the first glimmers of dawn, they found themselves in the midst of a physical encounter. "No, no more," whispered Su Yingxue softly and weakly. Chu Yihan would usually not listen to her, but this time he stopped. As he got up to dress, he was cold as a deity. Despite having just shared such an intense experience, Chu Yihan seemed to stand above the clouds, noble and untouchable. "Why not tell her?" "Lise," Su Yingxue slowly got up and, taking advantage of the fact that it wasn't light out yet, tiptoed over to Chu Yihan and said, "Your Highness, Grandpa gave me a task to return to Jiangdu City first. He wants me to see Sister Jinyan and find out what problems have arisen between her and my brother, so I won't be leaving with the main army." Chu Yihan's hand, holding the teacup, stiffened, followed by a low, That was rather cold. Su Yingxue licked her lips and said, "Then I will get ready and leave first." Chu Yihan still responded with, "Your Highness, do you not have anything else to say?" Su Yingxue was starting to feel frustrated. His constant "ing" made her think he needed to visit the privy upon waking but was embarrassed to say so in front of her. Chu Yihan finished his cup of tea, his lips pursed, his expression slightly cool. "Be careful on the way, I have arranged for Mo Qi to protect you." Su Yingxue pouted, "Oh." What she wanted to hear wasn't this, but Chu Yihan's actions were indeed considerate, making it hard for her to pinpoint anything amiss. How should she bring it up? "Hey! Su Yingxue, are you leaving or not?" Saint Juan, carrying his pack, yelled from outside, "Didn't you say you would leave before dawn? The day is bright, and you're still dilly-dallying. What are you doing, making babies?" Su Yingxue's face suddenly turned red. "You're the one babbling nonsense." Before she had the chance to properly say goodbye to Chu Yihan, she ran out, chasing after Saint Juan to thump him repeatedly on the head. As she chased after Saint Juan and left the military camp, Su Yingxue looked back and realized she had already put a considerable distance between herself and Chu Yihan. It would be too late to rush back and say something to him now. Moreover, she hadn't decided what to say. About Qin Mayan. Or the original intention of her ride back. There seemed to be an issue between them, yet it was so subtle it could be easily ignored. Hey! What are you thinking about? You're wasting time, even the horses are more diligent than you. Despite getting hit, Saint Juan still cared about Su Yingshu's schedule and kindly reminded her. Su Yingshu led her horse, her voice low, let's go. If it's nothing significant, there's no need to dwell on it. Inside the commander's tent, Mo Chi came to report to Chui Han, Master, the princess has already departed. I will immediately lead men to follow and protect her. Chui Han waved his hand, go then. Whatever she wants to do, support her in secret, and don't let her be unhappy. Yes. But Master, why didn't you explain things clearly to the princess? Mo Chi asked, his brows furrowed with confusion. Explain what? Explain that you kept her in the military camp for her own good, to avoid implicating her and both General Su brothers with accusations of favoritism and inviting criticism. Also, your painstaking efforts towards both generals, despite having punished old General Su, you have been tending to his wounds, with the military doctor constantly at his side. On the surface, you said you were punishing General Su Hao, but in reality, you were demoting him as training, so when he merits new achievements, he could directly be promoted and ennobled. Furthermore, your apparent coldness towards the two generals is actually to flush out the traitorous spy in the military who is working against them. And you knew early on that Saint Juan would come to whisk the princess away, following you to rescue General Su Hao. Your reinforcements have always been ready, never allowing the princess to come to any harm. Chui Han had done so much, yet he told Su Yingshu none of it. In this battle, Chui Han's strategies were not only against the enemy army but were also largely for Su Yingshu's sake. He gave her everything he could. Chui Han's good intentions lease, in those days, ignoring Su Yingshu's overtures and throwing her out of the carriage was to prevent him from learning about her arrangements, thereby exposing flaws and to spare her the worry. The subsequent coldness was even more to give her the opportunity to reunite with old General Su. His master, he took care of everything for Su Yingshu thoughtfully. Every single detail. It was even more meticulous, more difficult than fighting a war. Chui Han's expression was indifferent, his gaze distant, no need. If Su Yingshu could come to terms with it, so be it, if not. He would continue to treat her the same way in the future. Because they were already husband and wife, for the rest of his life, he would devote himself to her, using all his ability to love her properly. As for her, if she could not give him a sense of security, then so be it. It was no big deal to him. Su Yingshu hurried back to Jiangdu City, feeling genuinely nostalgic when she first returned, as it was her hometown, which she had missed tremendously after being away for so long. Saint Juan thought she sought out Wu Jinyan for some urgent matter and would head straight for the 1,000-jiao pavilion. Yet she rode directly back to the Marquis Manor. Saint Juan glared at her, hey, didn't you say you were going to see your sister-in-law? Why are you heading back to your own home? Wu Jinyan hasn't married into your family yet. Visiting my sister-in-law doesn't stop me from popping into my own home first. Su Yingshu led her horse, Chu Axian, back to the Marquis Manor, familiarizing it with the place. She noticed that Chu Axian was a very intelligent horse. Aside from its inability to speak, it was very accommodating of her intentions. She let Chu Axian find its way to the stables by scent alone, and indeed it found its own way there, clever and obedient. Saint Juan rolled his eyes with exasperation. What's to be so proud of with just a horse? Are you going to the 1,000-jiao pavilion or not? What's your rush? Anyone who doesn't know better would think you're the one who's desperate to see my sister-in-law with designs on her. Su Yingshu wrapped her arms around herself and walked into her courtyard. If Saint Juan wasn't so old, she really would have to be wary of him. Watch out for him being a LSP. What nonsense. Why would I have designs on your sister-in-law? It's her spices I'm after. Your sister-in-law is a master of fragrance. I've been roaming around and soaked in the battlefield stench. The smell of blood is almost suffocating. I can't stand it anymore. I need to get some spices from her to get rid of this odor. Saint Juan walked on, disgustingly wriggling his nose. Oh my. This is just too much. He really couldn't stand it. He needed to find Wu Jinyan as soon as possible for some spices and perfume. Old man, you're of such an age, what's there to be so vain about? Surprised by his reason, Su Yingxue mercilessly mocked Saint Juan. Upon entering, she encountered Jilan. Jilan was overjoyed. Miss, you're back. Yes. Your clever and unrivaled miss, adored by all, has returned. Su Yingxue pinched Xilan's cheek. So smooth and tender, Jilan, I haven't seen you in so long, and your skin has improved so much. Woo woo. Miss, Jilan missed you so much. Jilan threw herself into Su Yingxue's arms, tears welling up in her eyes. On the day of the big wedding, when Su Yingxue suddenly disappeared, everyone said she must have met with disaster. Even Ziwei was so heartbroken she nearly wanted to join Su Yingxue in death. Fortunately, Xu Yan returned in time to stop her, persuading her not to be so pessimistic, proclaiming that as a person blessed by heaven, their miss would surely be fine. Only then did she calm down. Now, at last, Su Yingxue had returned. During the month Su Yingxue was away, the wait had been excruciating for Jilan. All right, now that your miss has returned, why the long face? Hurry and get ready, accompany me to the Thousand Jiao Pavilion, and don't let anyone know. Su Yingxue quietly pulled Jilan to the back door. Saint Juan followed Su Yingxue, while distastefully noticing the odor clinging to his own body. On the way, Su Yingxue asked Jilan about the happenings in Jiangdu City over the past few months. Besides what Chui Han had mentioned, executing Yi Zhenjin, demoting Marquis Changxin, and confining Su Xinlan, the rest seemed fairly uneventful. Miss, the only change during the months you were gone is with Miss Wu. She didn't tell you, but she left for a while, and after returning, Jilan had difficulty continuing. After coming back, what happened? Su Yingxue felt an ominous premonition. Surely, something had happened to Wu Jinyan. Rumors are rampant in Jiangdu City. Miss Wu has secluded herself in the rear garden of the Thousand Jiao Pavilion, seeing no one. Miss Han and Miss Miaoyan are barely able to keep the business running, allowing it to continue operating. Jilan found it even more challenging and dared not reveal everything to Su Yingxue. Seeing her like this, Su Yingxue knew that she had to meet Wu Jinyan herself to understand the full truth of the matter. Cousin. Su Han had just received the news of Su Yingxue's safe return, and she hurried over at once, greeting her eagerly. Yingxue, it's so good that you are unharmed. On the day of Su Yingxue's grand wedding, Su Han had been terrified. If Su Yingxue really had met with disaster, even executing Yi Zhenjin and Su Xinlan by lingering death wouldn't have been enough to appease her fury. Sister, I have returned safely, but there is something urgent I need to attend to. Let me see Sister Jinyan quickly. Su Yingxue's eyes, clear and pure like glaze. Jinyan, Su Han's face clearly displayed her discomfort. She led Su Yingxue to the backyard, unlocking the heavily secured doors, and then took her to the darkest room without sunlight. Whispering in her ear, she said, when you see Jinyan, try not to get agitated, and don't hurt her. Su Yingxue nodded, Emichem. Heavy-hearted, she pushed open the door without entering, and already Wu Jinyan's voice came from inside, get out. It's not time for food delivery, I'm not seeing anyone. That sharp, rejecting tone did not at all resemble Wu Jinyan's usual voice. Had Su Yingxue not known her so well, she would never have guessed that in just a few short months, Wu Jinyan could have changed to such an extent. Her voice was somewhat low. Sister-in-law, it's me. Ing. Ing Xue. Wu Jinyan sat up in bed, and as their eyes met, they reflected an unspeakable excitement and relief. Thank goodness, you're safe, and you've come back. Wu Jinyan covered her mouth, tears falling unstoppable. Su Yingxue stepped forward to embrace her. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry to have worried you. I'm fine, and I have returned safely to see you. Her laughter was tender, like a clear spring flowing into one's heart. Wu Jinyan's heart, which was like dead ash, seemed to lighten somewhat because of her. Su Yingxue, being a doctor, was quick to detect the changes in Wu Jinyan's body. The moment she let go of Wu Jinyan, Su Yingxue teased, laughing, Sister-in-law, you must have been eating more these days, even your body has filled out. Look at this belly, it's grown so big. She even playfully patted Wu Jinyan's belly as she laughed. Wu Jinyan's face turned to one of pained restraint as she gently covered it. Su Yingxue was taken aback. Sister-in-law, what's wrong? She hadn't used any force just now, surely she didn't hurt Wu Jinyan. I'm fine. After letting her go, Su Yingxue finally took a good look at Wu Jinyan's face, which was exceedingly pale, completely void of any color, and she appeared alarmingly thin. Yet strangely, her abdomen was slightly bulging, creating a stark contrast to her slender figure. The child is already 5 months old. Su Yingxue could not fail to notice the oddity of her body, but when she tried to grab Wu Jinyan's wrist to take her pulse, Wu Jinyan hid her hands behind her back, biting her lip in panic. I'm fine. You don't need to worry about me. How could you be fine? Su Yingxue frowned. With such a big belly, could she possibly be blind? When Su Yingxue pulled Wu Jinyan's hand out and felt her pulse, her heart skipped a beat. Sister-in-law, she was pregnant. Moreover, this pregnancy was already almost 5 months along, but 5 months ago, Su Hao was at Bamboo Leaf Pass and had not come back at all. The child in her womb. Wu Jinyan's eyes were bloodshot, her expression as if her heart had died, which was very distressing. Su Yingxue clenched her teeth, filled with hatred. Sister-in-law, who has wronged you? Tell me, and I will kill him. To have the audacity to wrong Wu Jinyan, to let her get pregnant. Once she found that bastard, she would surely kill him. No, you can't blame others, it's me, I didn't protect myself well, it's me. I'm sorry, brother. Wu Jinyan covered her face and burst into tears. The pain and distress she had repressed for so long burst forth like a floodgate opened by Su Yingxue's words. She cried out loudly, determined to let out all her heartache and grievances. Sister-in-law, Su Yingxue's heart twisted in pain as she held Wu Jinyan. When Wu Jinyan fainted from crying, Su Yingxue administered acupuncture to stabilize her mind. She then asked Su Han to send over some food for her to eat when she woke up. In the room, Su Han explained the situation to Su Yingxue in detail. Before your grand wedding, when I came to purchase your dowry for you, Jinyan entrusted me to look after the 1000-jiao pavilion temporarily. She said she would go out of Jiangdu City to visit relatives. I agreed and offered to send someone to protect her, but she refused, saying it wasn't far from Jiangdu City. I let her go without worry, not knowing. Su Han's face flashed with regret. If I had insisted on sending protection with her, she wouldn't have suffered like this. Afterward, I got busy with your grand wedding, and you kept running into trouble, so I couldn't spare the effort to look for her. It wasn't until 2 months ago that she returned looking disheveled, and without saying a word, she locked herself in her room. Later, I watched as her belly grew larger day by day. As a married woman herself, she could not fail to notice the state of Wu Jinyan's belly, but when she asked once, Wu Jinyan said nothing and locked herself away even more securely, at one point even refusing to eat, starving herself to skin and bone. Later, somehow, Su Hao returned. I allowed him to see Jinyan, and it seemed they had a fierce argument. Su Hao rushed out in a hurry, and Jin Yan fainted. I had no choice but to summon a doctor to treat her clandestinely. After all, there was a life inside her. I advised her to think it over carefully, and then she decided to keep the child. Su Han finished recounting Wu Jinyan's ordeal, her eyes showing a touch of desolation. I guess the child was left by someone who wronged her, but in the end, it's her own child. I couldn't keep my child and have no fate with children in this lifetime. I don't want Jin Yan to end up like me, so, she was worried that Su Yingxue would blame her. But Su Yingxue was only filled with rage. The child did nothing wrong, and Sister Jin Yan is innocent too. But who is this villain? Let me find out, and I will butcher him. Don't harm my child. Because she went to Bamboo Leaf Pass Lease, on the bed, Wu Jinyan woke up with a scream, instinctively protecting her stomach tightly. Sister-in-law, the child is fine, don't worry. Su Yingxue held her hand tightly, comforting her. She could feel Wu Jinyan's fear and trembling at this moment. After enduring such an ordeal, and with this sudden child. Yingxue, Wu Jinyan's eyes were brimming with tears. Su Yingxue urged her to eat first and then decide whether or not to tell her about the child and where she had been. Wu Jinyan had been depressed because she couldn't find an effective method and someone to confide in. Telling Su Han and Su Miaoyan would only add to their troubles. Now that Su Yingxue was back, she told her, "It happened at Bamboo Leaf Pass, while I was looking for your brother." What? You went to Bamboo Leaf Pass? Su Yingxue's eyes widened. This was something she had never expected. The journey to and from Bamboo Leaf Pass from Jiangdu City took half a month even for her alone, and a woman could encounter countless dangers on the road. Yet she dared to go. Su Yingxue took a deep breath. Sister-in-law, I don't blame you. You were indeed missing brothers so much that you did so, but even if you wanted to go, you should have told me, or asked cousin sister to send someone to protect you. If she had been protected, such a thing would never have happened. Right before your grand wedding, the entire Marquis Manor was very busy. I didn't want to burden you with worries before your marriage, and moreover, this was a matter between your brother and me, something we needed to face and resolve ourselves. Wu Jinyan's tone now allowed Su Yingxue to imagine how determined she must have been at the time. Perhaps even if she had anticipated what might happen to her, she wouldn't have stayed in Jiangdu City. Sister-in-law, what exactly happened between you and brother? Did you see him at Bamboo Leaf Pass? This was what Su Yingxue cared about the most. Su Hao's emotional breakdown and his entrapment by the enemy must be related to what happened at Bamboo Leaf Pass. Wu Jinyan looked down, forcefully wiping away the tears on her face, making it seem as if her heart was riddled with holes. With a choked voice, she said, "When your brother first went to Bamboo Leaf Pass, he often wrote letters back to me, but then the letters gradually became less frequent, and even on the paper, there were scents of hibiscus flowers. Managing Thousand Jiao Pavilion, I'm more than familiar with various fragrances, that's a scent used by women. I suspected that he might have become close to a girl at Bamboo Leaf Pass. Once a woman has suspicions, it's hard not to verify them. After a month without letters from him, I made up my mind to find him. On my way to Bamboo Leaf Pass, though I encountered some difficulties, I eventually arrived safely. The Miss Liu who received me was very polite, but I waited a whole day without seeing your brother. He used the busyness of military affairs as an excuse, asking me to wait for him until evening at the general manor. I knew I wouldn't see him that night, but I was not going to give up. I planned to stay in an inn for the night and wait for him the next day. Unexpectedly, on the way, I encountered a drunken man who, that night was a nightmare Wu Jinyan would never be able to forget in her life. She suffered terribly, and as she struggled to get away, she didn't even see the man's face clearly, she just thought of escaping. Afterward, she no longer had the courage to see Su Hao. She walked towards Jiangdu City like a bewildered puppet. By the time she reached Jiangdu City, she discovered she was pregnant. Don't call me sister-in-law anymore, Lise. She began to lock herself away, refusing to eat or drink, intent on miscarrying the child, but then Su Hao suddenly returned. Seeing her pregnant, he was shocked, pained, and furious. She still remembers to this day how Su Hao grabbed her shoulders, his eyes red as he said to her, "Jin Yan, abort the child. This child cannot be kept, and what about me? Will I still remain by your side?" Su Hao hesitated, unable to give Wu Jinyan an immediate answer. Time slipped away by the second. Wu Jinyan knew then that Su Hao was unable to give her an answer anymore. Caught between Su Hao and the child, she made a choice. "Su Hao, you should go. I will keep the child." Su Hao stormed out the door, and she knew that there was no longer any possibility between them. Su Yingxue sighed deeply. Afterwards, my brother left for the battlefield. Now she reflected, during their campaign against Yungue City, those days spent eradicating Wu Dao, Su Hao's odd behavior must have been on account of Wu Jinyan's pregnancy. Su Yingxue never doubted Su Hao's deep affection for Wu Jinyan, but as for Wu Jinyan now. "Sister-in-law, since you've decided to keep the child, I will prescribe you some fetus-preserving medicine and tonics to care for your health. You must eat well. Only by nurturing your body can you ensure the child is born healthy," Su Yingxue said. She gently stroked Wu Jinyan's belly, lamenting that the child was not Su Hao's. But it was not yet born and was certainly innocent. And Wu Jinyan had her own reasons for deciding to keep the child. "Yingxue, thank you, but from now on, please just call me by my name. Don't call me sister-in-law anymore. Once your brother returns, I will dissolve the marriage with him, and we will owe each other nothing," Wu Jinyan said, her face full of vulnerability and her eyes showing painful resolve. Su Yingxue moved her lips. "All right. Sister Jinyan, I promise you. But as for your marriage to my brother, he won't give it up easily. He was injured and trapped behind enemy lines. He must be very concerned about you. Once the army returns to the capital, you should have a proper talk with my brother," Su Yingxue urged. A rift had formed between the two, leaving behind a great wound that might never heal. But it was necessary to speak calmly and clearly, to say goodbye properly, in order to make peace with one's heart. To not let down the deep love of all these years. After leaving the medicine and clinic instructions, Wu Jinyan began to eat once Su Yingxue was gone. The inherent fortitude in her nature meant she would not easily succumb to any situation. Even if humiliated by having a child in such a manner, she would not seek death but rather contemplate how to live her life moving forward. After visiting Wu Jinyan, Su Yingxue shared a cup of tea with Su Han. Although Su Han was the daughter of an official, a lady of respectable family, her management of the Thousand Jiao Pavilion in this period led to a continuous rise in revenues. Integrating some of Wu Jinyan's methods, 3 more branches of the pavilion had already been opened. As an owner who simply waited for her share of the profits, Su Yingxue felt somewhat ashamed to receive such a large sum of money after facing such trials and tribulations. "I haven't managed the business for a single day, yet so much revenue has filled my pockets. It feels rather awkward. Sister, since you have opened a few more branches, the earnings from these new branches should be split between you and Sister Jinyan." "I won't intervene," she said. She had the clinic to worry about, and after returning, she suspected she would not be able to look after the Thousand Jiao Pavilion anymore. "You're willing to trust me to manage the Thousand Jiao Pavilion?" Su Han asked, her lips curving into a slight smile, her eyes shimmering with excitement. Su Han's future husband Lise, sister has already taken action, hasn't she? What's there for me not to trust? Su Yingxue chuckled lightly. Su Han opened a branch without giving advance notice, but instead got straight to work diligently, which proved her capability in this area was not weak. Since she had this idea, what reason did she have to obstruct it? And with Wu Jinyan's current condition, she probably couldn't be busy at the Thousand Jiao Pavilion for a while. Someone needed to look after the business. Su Han nodded with a smile. In that case, I will draft a contract. After Jin Yan has seen it, the three of us can sit down and sign it. I absolutely won't take more than what's yours, sister. Having received this opportunity from Su Yingxue, she naturally wouldn't mistreat her. This opportunity was too good for her, like a lifeline. But, sister, as a daughter of the Marquis Manor and our uncle's daughter, your status is noble. Aren't you afraid that our aunt won't agree, or of any gossip, if you lower your status to manage Thousand Jiao Pavilion like Sister Jinyan? This concerned Su Yingxue. Though Su Han was resilient, she was different from Wu Jinyan. Wu Jinyan had been accustomed to hardship since childhood, hence developing a good character and abilities. Even though Su Han could manage the internal affairs of the household, it wouldn't necessarily mean she could adapt to the external world of business. Over time, Su Yingxue worried it could be detrimental to her future marriage prospects. My mother does not agree. She has been angry with me ever since I came to the Thousand Jiao Pavilion, forcing me to continually stay in the Marquis Manor, but as time passed, she seemed to have no way to stop me. Furthermore, you needn't worry, I've already chosen my future husband, and he supports me in doing this. Su Han patted Su Yingxue's shoulder. Su Yingxue was particularly surprised. Future husband? Who have you chosen, sister? Su Han had always been decisive, but that she had already chosen a husband was beyond Su Yingxue's expectations. It seemed that quite a lot had happened during the few months she wasn't in Jiangdu City. You've met him. He's Junior Officer Song Qingyi, who should be returning to the capital with the army now. Su Han smiled faintly, a warm and sweet light gleaming in her eyes. Su Yingxue tugged at the corner of her lips. Song Qingyi. I seem to have seen him in the military. Is he still a junior officer? Su Yingxue didn't recognize military ranks, but she had caught a glimpse of Song Qingyi in the military one day and noticed that his armor was different from the past. She knew that although Song Qingyi was not handsome, he was capable, and would surely accomplish great things in the future. But she never would have imagined that Su Han would end up with him. Sister, how did your story with him develop? I've been away for so long, and seem to know nothing. Even that rascal Miaoyan, I don't know where she's run off to. When it came to glibness, Su Miaoyan was more interesting. Listening to Su Han narrate would certainly be subdued and restrained, not as entertaining as having Su Miaoyan tell the story as if she were a storyteller. Miaoyan, as Su Han began to speak, she found it somewhat tricky. You really should go see her. She's been living in the Qilin Garden for so long since you've been gone. I heard that Aunt Yin visited the Qilin Garden twice, but couldn't take Miaoyan out. Qilin Garden. Xiao Yu. He's detained Miaoyan. Su Yingxue jumped to her feet and rushed to the Qilin Garden. As she barged in, she kicked the door and cursed, Xiao Yu, where have you kept my sister? Release her at once. Otherwise, I won't let this go. Although Xiao Yu had helped them by fixing the tunnels, saving her brother, and thus owed them a favor, this man was really shameless. Xiao Yu is an old man lease, her sister Miaoyan is still a young girl. How could he bring himself to do this? Utterly detestable. Xiao Si hurried out to welcome her, blocking Su Yingxue, 9th Princess Consort. Our young master is napping right now. Please wait in the front hall for a while. Wait for what? Where is my sister? I am here to take her home. Su Yingxue was fuming with anger, thinking about how Xiao Ye's behavior was totally out of line. If he had so much as touched a hair on Su Miaoyan's head, she would surely prick him to death. Since she had been to treat Xiao Ye's illness before, Su Yingxue knew her way around and charged straight to Xiao Ye's room. She kicked open the door just as Xiao Yu was getting up. He wasn't using a wheelchair anymore and stood in front of Su Yingxue, his tall figure somewhat unaccustomed to her. Despite being from a merchant's family, he carried an air of scholarly gentility, with a hint of indifference at the corners of his eyes and brows, adding to his untainted nobility. Clearly awakened by Su Yingxue, Xiao Yu said calmly, "Ninth Princess Consort barges into my room. Does the ninth prince know about this?" Su Yingxue's face turned green with anger. "I'm not here for you. What does it matter if the prince knows? Where is my sister? What have you done to her? Xiao Yu, have you lost all sense of humanity? Miao Yan is only 14, still a child, and you dare lay a hand on her." She accused Xiao Yu to his face, causing Xiao Si to wince. "Ninth Princess Consort, you must be mistaken. Miss Miao Yan has been living in Qilin Garden and seems quite happy. Our young master never forces her to do anything. What nonsense are you spouting? Is Qilin Garden her home? She has her own house and doesn't return but feels comfortable staying here with your young master. My auntie has come several times and hasn't been able to take her back. Are you saying it's not because your young master is preventing it?" Su Yingxue interrogated sharply. On this point, Xiao Si shook his head firmly. "Our young master has never stopped her from leaving. It's just that every time Madame Yin came to pick her up, after talking with their young master, she left and never mentioned taking Miss Miaoyan away again." Xiao Yu didn't bother to argue with Su Yingxue and, with a wave of his hand, had the servants bring Su Miaoyan out. Su Miaoyan was dressed in a light sheer skirt, delicate and lovely in color, enhancing her youthful face and making her seem like a fairy among flowers. "Sister, you're back." Su Miaoyan darted over in little steps, like a pink cloud crashing into Su Yingxue's embrace, snuggling into her. Su Yingxue saw her cheerful demeanor and flicked her forehead. "You brat, staying away from home for so long, have you been brainwashed by this man?" "Brainwashed? Why would I be brainwashed? Brother Yu has been very nice to me. I'm much more comfortable in Qilin Garden than at home." Su Miaoyan giggled, her face sporting two tender and soft rosy cheeks. Su Yingxue wanted to pinch them. You even became addicted to living outside, a young girl who isn't married yet, aren't you ashamed?" "Aw. Sister, have mercy." Su Miaoyan cried out as Su Yingxue pinched her face. "Sister is still unmarried, and you have been living outside all this time. Not returning home at all." Su Miaoyan was quick to draw parallels, quite adept at it, indeed. But Su Yingxue wouldn't lose to her in verbal sparring. "Sister is already married, living with my own husband, the prince." "Are you married?" "Not only are you not married, but you are also living with this old man." She pointed at Xiao Yu, the label of an old man branded on him. Xiao Si shivered upon hearing this. "Miss Su, our young master is in the prime of youth. How has he become old?" This man is a bit special. He felt that Xiao Yu was being somewhat wronged. Xiao Yu was only 26 years old, older than Su Miaoyan, but when compared to that ninth prince from Su Yingxue's family, he was still somewhat younger, wasn't he? And their young master had only delayed getting married because of his business dealings, not to the point of becoming the old man Su Yingxue described. Xiao Ye's features were cool and collected, and on his face that seemed to show no emotion, his thin lips parted slightly. "The words of the ninth princess consort, I fear the ninth prince has not heard. When I have time, I will certainly have a good talk with his highness." Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow, thinking of tattling to his highness. "As you like. But let me tell you, Xiao Yu, keep away from my sister. You sly old man, just find a madam from the Xiao family for yourself. Our miss from the Marquis Manor, you'd best not touch. Otherwise, they would turn from partners into enemies." A dark shade crossed Xiao Ye's eyes, lending them a dim and indecipherable emotion. Sister, you misunderstand. Brother Yu has been very kind to me. He teaches me to read and write, and it's far more interesting than what my tutors teach. Su Miaoyan bounced to Xiao Ye's side, as docile as a little kitten. And judging by her demeanor, she seemed to have gained a bit more poise and composure than her usual cleverness, as if she truly had learned quite a lot. Su Yingshu's tone relaxed somewhat. Good, your brother Yu has taught you well. But, Miss Miaoyan, can you come back with me to the Marquis Manor now? Grandpa will be back soon, and your father, my third uncle, will probably return to court soon too. If you're still staying here when they come back, they'll break your legs. What? Grandpa and my father are coming back soon. Su Miaoyan shuddered with fright, hastily clutching at Xiao Ye's sleeve. Brother Yu, I really have to go back now, or if Daddy finds me here, I'll be in real trouble. She was shrewd and knew how to charm any elder, but she feared her father most of all. Stern, a man who at no time would show favoritism, no matter how she played coy or acted cute, it was useless. A faint sense of reluctance flashed through Xiao Ye's eyes as his hand gently rested on her head. Compared to his proud and indifferent demeanor towards Su Yingxue just a moment ago, he now spoke to her tenderly. All right. He arranged for someone to escort Su Yingxue and Su Miaoyan back. He even personally saw them off at the gate of Qilin Garden. Su Yingxue was always observing Xiao Ye's expression. This man seemed to have a special feeling for Su Miaoyan. Special enough for her to take heed. But on the surface, he appeared to treat Su Miaoyan merely as a child. He didn't stop her when she came to take her away. Xiao Yu watched their carriage leave, the expression in his eyes retracted, becoming profound and indifferent, yet holding an inscrutable darkness that others could not discern. Xiao Si stood beside him, heaving a sigh. Even Lady Yin couldn't take Miss Miaoyan away, and yet she went away with the 9th princess consort. His young master must feel reluctant. Xiao Ye's voice was cold. Su Yingxue couldn't take her away because she herself wanted to go back. It was only then I let her. In the end, he had not yet been able to give her a proper status. However, there will be time in the future. In the Marquis Manor, when Su Yingxue brought Su Miaoyan back, Su Han had already prepared a table full of sumptuous food. With no elders present, Su Han lifted her cup and said with a light smile, "Today, we 3 sisters will enjoy good company." Wow, Sister Han is drinking. I want a drink too. Su Miaoyan poured out the fruit juice in her cup and quietly filled it with wine. Su Han's change lease. Su Yingxue rapped her on the head. What are you doing drinking, kid? Pour it out for me. I won't pour it out. I want to drink it. Besides, my birthday has passed, I'm 14 now. I'm not a child anymore. Brother Yu said that in another year I'll come of age. Once I'm of age, I'll be a grown miss. Su Miaoyan protected her wine glass, pursing her lips forcefully. Hiss. It's always Brother Yu this, Brother Yu that. Su Miaoyan, has Xiao Yu drugged you? You two haven't, by any chance. Just as Su Yingxue was about to voice her suspicions, Su Han quickly clutched her hand. Yingxue, don't talk nonsense. Miaoyan is still young, but she knows her limits. She wants to drink, so just pour her a little. It's fine. Su Han came to Su Miaoyan's defense over the cup of wine, and Miaoyan quickly drank it down. So spicy, she coughed once, the liquid sliding down her throat, but it really took her by surprise, giving her an unprecedented thrill. Ha ha ha. Seeing her little mannerisms, Su Han couldn't help but laugh out loud. Su Yingxue held her cup at the side, looking at Su Han and feeling that she was very different from usual. In the past, she always adhered strictly to the rules of propriety, the model among young ladies from noble families, meticulous in thought and never putting a foot wrong. Having not seen her for several months, she had become much more cheerful. It was as if they had switched roles. Before, it was always Su Han who urged her and Su Miaoyan to stop messing around. Now, Su Han seemed more indulgent towards Su Miaoyan. Sister Shui, why aren't you drinking? Don't tell me your alcohol tolerance is even worse than mine. Su Miaoyan deliberately squinted her eyes, teasing Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue was about to drink, but when the wine reached her lips, she felt a bit nauseous. Never mind, switch it for juice for me. I'm not feeling great with the smell of alcohol today. Even Sister Shui has a day when she doesn't drink. Let me drink for you. As Su Miaoyan spoke, she went to snatch her wine cup, but before she could grab it, Su Han had already drunk Su Yingxue's wine. Her cheeks were slightly red. Since you're not drinking, I might as well drink some more with Miaoyan. The dinner was enjoyed heartily, and the drinks were enjoyed even more. Su Miaoyan became drunk and was carried back to sleep soundly. Su Han was also drunk, and when Su Yingxue wanted to give her some sobering medicine, she pushed it away. Don't bother. It's rare for me to be drunk. I don't want to sober up so quickly. Sister, what's happening to you? Su Yingxue noticed the change in Su Han but didn't understand why it was so significant. Dismissing Jifin and Jilan, Su Han linked arms with Su Yingxue and staggered alongside her through the courtyard, a bitter smile on her face. Yingxue, do you also feel that sister no longer seems like the noble young lady from before, the role model among young misses? Su Yingxue nodded. Yes, sister, you've changed from before. Getting drunk, finding a husband, managing a store, such things were never part of Su Han's prior actions. In everyone's eyes, she was the unattainable white moonlight, admirable but only to be looked up to from afar, out of reach. But I feel that the way I'm living now is the most comfortable and enjoyable. Before, I lived for the family, for the identity of the eldest young miss of the Su family, for my husband, for the Marquis manor. Not once was it for myself. The unbearable sadness in her eyes flowed out with her tears. Recalling the days of the past, although she was praised and envied by everyone's gazes, did she truly benefit from it? Becoming a ghost to protect Ulysse, once she left those high-end poetry banquets and gatherings, what did people say about her, Su Han, behind her back? Those who envied her perfection called her a pretender. Those she had kindly helped accused her of feigning her goodwill. When she broke ties with Chu Xiaotian, she was doused with the kind of filth she hadn't experienced in 20 years, a weight that pressed down on her, leaving her gasping for air. It nearly drove her to a deathly corner. She was simply trying to survive, to fight her husband's family for the right to keep living and to protect her own family. But in the end, she was labeled a wanton woman, shameless, by others. Some even mocked her, saying that she could never marry again, that no one would want a heartless and cruel woman who had left her husband's family with nothing. But none of this was her fault. Looking at her tear-streaked face, Su Yingxue felt somewhat heavy-hearted. Sister, did you start the shop and choose Song Qingyi to fend off the rumors and secure your future as your husband? It sounded somewhat forced. And even, unbearably heartbreaking. No. Su Han wiped away her tears, took a deep breath, and a smile appeared on her face. I did it for myself. I can run the business of the Thousand Jiao Pavilion well. Those women can target me, but they can't refuse the discounts and high-quality goods I offer. As for Song Qingyi, he genuinely likes me, he treats me well, never has a man guarded me as sincerely as he does. He has been utterly selfless, paying any price to protect me. When he heard my father was looking for someone to protect me, he turned down a promotion to stay by my side. Whenever Chu Xiaotian harassed or even insulted me, he would stand against him every time, even getting injured by Xiaotian. But he said he didn't care, he would never let me be sad. And then there were those young misses from rich families who insulted me. A bittersweet memory surfaced in her heart. She was ridiculed at gatherings, called second-hand goods, someone who wouldn't be able to marry and should spend the rest of her life in a temple. Hearing this, Song Qingyi drew his sword against them. He said, "If you wish to die, utter one more word against Miss, and my sword is ready to sever your heads." Ah! At the banquet, the group of frightened young misses from rich families ran off in an embarrassing state, daring not to insult her again. At that moment, Su Han's heart pounded fiercely in her chest. After Song Qingyi had chased those people away, he asked her cautiously, "Miss, did I frighten you?" Su Han shook her head, her eyes full of emotion. "Junior Officer Song, would you really act against them? They are all daughters of official families." There was a hint of probing in her question. Even though she knew Song Qingyi might say something disheartening, she still wanted to hear it. He replied, "If they continue, I will indeed take their heads to ensure their silence forever." Shocking. That's the only feeling Su Han had at that moment. "Killing them, you won't get away either. You will die," Su Han exclaimed, astounded. Was this man willing to protect her reputation with his own life? With his lips tightly pressed, Song Qingyi said, "I know, but that way, I would have to protect Miss as a ghost from then on. Please do not be afraid. Marry only Song Qingyi Lise, to protect her as a ghost." It was this sentence that made Su Han make up her mind. Her heart was pleased with him, and she wanted to marry him, to be his wife. It's really surprising that Song Qingyi can love sister so much. Su Yingxue and Su Han leaned against each other under the moonlight, smiling contentedly. Su Han's eyes were smiling, even gentler than the moonlight. "Yes, all the love and protection I dared not wish for or accept before, he has given me. Therefore, no matter what he looks like or what status he holds, I'm willing to marry him wholeheartedly. This marriage, I think uncle and aunt won't refuse." Su Yingxue was very happy for her. Speaking of her parents, Su Han felt some distress. Father doesn't really mind Song Qingyi's appearance, admiring his abilities and agrees with me being with him, but mother, she cares about Song Qingyi's poor background, the lack of family support, and no achievements to his name, fearing that he won't be able to protect me in the future. Qin Wan, being from a prominent family, naturally wanted to find a powerful marital home for Su Han to make up for her previous neglect. Song Qingyi's looks were unimpressive, and his background was not great. Whenever Su Han brought him up with Qin Wan, she would frown. Even when she was harassed by Chu Xiaotian, letting Qin Wan know, she became even more worried. Worried that if Chu Xiaotian came to make trouble in the future, Song Qingyi might be harmed by Chu Xiaotian in secret. By then, if she became a widow, her latter half of life would be even more uncertain. "Sister, don't worry." Su Yingxue held Su Han's hand, her eyes bright as stars. "Song Qingyi has exceptional abilities. He will definitely achieve great things in the future. Chu Xiaotian is no match for him." In her previous life, before she died, Song Qingyi had already begun to show his edge. Now that he had Su Han, in order to protect her, he would only hasten and work even harder to improve himself. He would surely achieve success even faster. As for Chu Xiaotian, Su Yingxue rolled up her sleeves. "Sister, if Chu Xiaotian comes to find you again, you come and tell me. I'll let him know the consequences of a toad wanting to eat swan meat." Chu Xiaotian, that damn toad. If he comes again, she wouldn't mind causing the prince's mansion in Yangon County to have no heirs. Su Han chuckled softly. "All right." The two sisters supported each other as they walked to their own courtyards. Su Yingxue wanted to convince Su Han to sleep together, but Su Han claimed she had a headache from the alcohol and wanted to rest alone. Su Yingxue didn't force her. She had just laid down in her own courtyard when Jifan quietly woke her. "Miss, that. The Prince of Yangon County has come again, still refusing to leave the Marquis Manor." Refusing to leave. Su Han rubbed her aching head. Tell someone to drive him away. Perhaps she had spent too much time with Su Yingxue, but Su Han's approach had also become more forceful. Jifin was somewhat surprised, but still followed Su Han's orders to shoo Chu Xiaotian away. But Chu Xiaotian was clearly determined not to leave without seeing Su Han. After being driven away multiple times, he kept coming back. Jifin had no choice but to wake Su Han again. Miss, the regional prince refuses to leave. He's been driven away many times and is still outside the Marquis Manor. He says he's not afraid of being seen, he just misses Miss and wants to see you one more time, even bringing a gift for you. Su Han propped herself up on the bed, took a few deep breaths to settle her mind, then dressed and stepped out into the moonlight. Jifin protected her closely, following every step. Seeing her come out, Chu Xiaoshan's handsome face immediately lit up with a smile. Hainer. You still came to see your highness. Your highness. Humble and submissive Lise, he excitedly wanted to go up and embrace Su Han, but was pushed back by Su Han's cold voice. Your highness, please show some respect. Show some respect. Chu Xiaotian smiled wryly and helplessly. That's right, you are no longer the regional princess, and I should not be touching you, but I really miss you, Hainer. Forgive me and come back home with me, okay? Forgive. Go back home. Su Han's lips curled up with a mocking arc, a trace of disdain spilling from her eyes. Your highness, you think that since I have not held the past entanglements against you, I am still as easy to manipulate as before and that you can overstep your bounds with me, right? I didn't. Caught off guard and seen through, Chu Xiaotian suddenly felt somewhat guilty. It was just as Su Han had said. He took advantage of her unwillingness to lose her temper at him, so he harassed her relentlessly, step by step pressuring her, thinking that he could eventually take her back to the prince's mansion. Chu Xiaoshan's reaction was within Su Han's expectations, even the thoughts behind each of his expressions were crystal clear to her. Chu Xiaotian, you have always thought that Su Han still loves you, even if you almost killed me, left me bruised all over, humiliated me thousands of times, I would still return to your side, grovel before you, right? No. I have never seen you as groveling, I know you acted that way because you admired me. Your toleration of my mother and sister was all because of your deep love for me. But Hainer, I realize my mistake now, my mother and sister have also been exiled 3,000 miles away, they can never return to Jiangdu City again. Isn't this punishment enough? You should come back with me now. Chu Xiaotian reached out to take her hand, but Su Han swiped her sleeve, and he didn't even touch the hem of her garment. Chu Xiaoshan's brow furrowed deeply. Hainer, what more do you want? I have already humbled myself to ask for your forgiveness, how much longer will you stay angry? Do you really want me to kneel before you and admit my wrongs? Chu Xiaotian had only mentioned it casually, but Su Han replied with a slight smile, all right, if your highness kneels and apologizes, then I'll consider what you've proposed. Su Han. Don't go too far. How can you make me kneel to you? Chu Xiaotian instantly became furious, his face the color of iron, a man's knees bear gold, and besides, considering my status, how can I kneel to a woman? Why not? Kneeling to admit one's errors is nothing out of the ordinary. Or is it that your highness believes you are truly blameless, and that your apology is merely because you've heard the news of my impending marriage and cannot stand it? A glint of shrewdness flashed through Su Han's eyes. In the past, Chu Xiaotian also pestered her on the street, at the Thousand Jiao Pavilion, on quite a few occasions. But each time, a single look of disdain from her was enough to break his confidence, his pride would not allow him to continue being humiliated in public. However, this time, he had been waiting at the door of Marquis Manor every night, persisting for 3 or 4 days already. She had only come out to see him because of this. Presumably, it was hearing about her and Song Qingyi that had provoked him. A look of disgust appeared in Chu Xiaoshan's eyes. He hated Su Han's shrewdness. The Su Han of the past, who always displayed obedience and tenderness towards him, was who he missed. That was why, time and again, he put his dignity aside and came back to find her. But now, she looked as though she could see right through him without him having to say a word. It made him particularly uneasy. In her impression, she could make amends lease. He held an exquisitely crafted sandalwood box in his hand and handed it to Su Han. "This is the golden hairpin that you once said you wanted. Your Highness has procured it for you, having spent considerable manpower and resources. Song Qingyi, I'm afraid, couldn't give this to you, could he?" Contempt was evident in his gaze, as was his disdain and scorn for Song Qingyi. The pride ingrained in his bones made him utterly disbelieve that Su Han, having once been his regional princess and witnessed the imperial majesty, would lower herself to marry an unknown junior officer. Su Han took the box from him, and upon opening it, she saw a jade peony hairpin, a clever piece of craftsmanship that turned jade into the pattern of peonies. It was a treasure of the imperial family, inaccessible to outsiders who could spend their whole lives without the chance to even catch a glimpse. Su Han had seen the Empress wear it before and had felt some envy at the time. After returning home, she told Chu Xiaotian about it, and Chu Xiaotian said, "This is a treasure of the imperial family, not even personally owned by the Empress. It can only be borrowed for grand banquets and must be returned to the treasure vault afterward. If the Empress herself cannot have it, how could you possibly obtain it?" Su Han's lips twisted slightly at the memory. Chu Xiaoshan's words, "How could you possibly obtain it?" were still fresh in her mind. Yet now that very item was in her hands, which felt like a particularly cruel irony. Su Han closed the wooden box and handed it back. "I once wanted this object, but not anymore, just as with your Highness, once heartily adored, now merely a stranger. I hope we will not disturb each other again." The box was thrust back into his hands, and Chu Xiaotian stared at it, his brow furrowed deeply. "Su Han, do not be too proud. Other than returning to your Highness' side, what path do you have? Song Qingyi is as ugly as a ghoul. He has been seriously wounded on the battlefield, who knows how long he will live. By staying with him, you are just waiting to become a widow." Slap. The crisp sound of a slap echoed loudly in the quiet night. Jifin and the others standing behind Su Han were all stunned. The always graceful and highly self-controlled Su Han had slapped someone. The slap was on Chu Xiaotian. Su Han withdrew her hand, and even the act of slapping bore elegance, but her gaze was fierce. "Chu Xiaotian, say what you will about me, but if you curse my future husband again, I will make you pay the price." Su Han. Chu Xiaoshan's eyes widened as his heart thumped wildly in his chest. Not a single hair on his body could believe that Su Han, the one who once loved him to the bone, had actually raised a hand against him. "I am here, your Highness. What would you like to do? Want to strike back?" "I'm afraid that's not possible. With many palace guards from Marquis Manor, they would not let your Highness leave easily after laying a hand on me again. But if your Highness chooses not to strike back, then I will not waste my time with you. Please leave the Marquis Manor." Su Han's defiance was overwhelming, her delicate frame belied the formidable aura she radiated. Su Han had already turned around when Chu Xiaotian seized her sleeve in desperation. "Hainer, don't be angry with your Highness. If you want to hit then. Your Highness is willing to apologize to you, but, could you please not marry Song Qingyi?" Su Han's actions tonight were completely beyond his expectations. His memory of her, the Su Han he thought he knew, was someone he still believed he could win back. Because she used to love him so deeply. Before their marriage, she had already given her heart to him. After they married, she tried even harder to be a good wife and mother, accommodating and considerate at every turn, dedicating herself to his well-being and the welfare of the prince's mansion. Breaking free from the bonds of love lease, a woman who loved him like that, even if she had to break off their engagement because of his mother and sister, still couldn't forget him in her heart. How could she marry someone else so quickly? He couldn't bear it, she shouldn't. Soo-han's expression remained calm. She had thought her heart would beat wildly at this moment. However, now facing Chu Xiaotian, her voice was soft yet resolute. I can't, my marriage to Song Qingyi is settled, we're just waiting for grandfather to return, then he can prepare our wedding date. Even if her mother still somewhat disapproved of her and Song Qingyi, she would find a way to persuade her. You can't marry him. Hainer, your highness still loves you, you can only marry me. Not him. Chu Xiaoshan's eyes were bloodshot. Soo-han's repeated rejections were nothing compared to her firm declaration to marry Song Qingyi, which broke his heart. If she married Song Qingyi, he could never bring her home again. He would lose her completely. Love me. Soo-han looked at Chu Xiaoshan's current state and let out a cold laugh in her heart. Back when she was married to Chu Xiaotian, she ironed his clothes every night before bed and scented them with spices, keeping him spotlessly clean and carrying her fragrance. But now he looked miserable, covered in dust, without a trace of her scent on him. Soo-han felt that she was finally free. Free from a constraint. The constraint of once loving Chu Xiaotian deeply. Soo-han exhaled softly. Chu Xiaotian, whether you love me or not doesn't matter anymore. I, Soo-han, no longer love you. Song Qingyi is more suitable for me. This man, in terms of status and position, was inferior to Chu Xiaotian, and she hadn't even seen his true appearance. But the affection and care he gave were what Soo-han had always wanted. Soo-han. Chu Xiaoshan's eyes were bloodshot, his hand trembled violently as he tried to touch Soo-han's hand. Even if I am defeated, you owe me a reason. I, the Prince of Yangon County, in what way am I inferior to that ugly and useless junior officer, Song Qingyi? Had never wanted for anything since childhood. Nor had he ever been so humiliated. Song Qingyi, ugly as a ghost. And so coarse and crude. By what right does he get to marry the Soo-han I love? How dare he defile her? I don't want to hear your highness slander my future husband anymore. But if your highness insists on an answer, then let me tell you, I'm marrying him because he loves me. Soo-han had calmed down, but her words ignited all the rage in Chu Xiaoshan's heart. He loves you. Don't I love you too? I, Chu Xiaotian, have always lived in luxury, not inferior to any prince, and even if not as powerful as the 9th prince, my 4th-rank officer position surpasses that of other court officials. I have also fought in battles, I too have come through life and death struggles. I am so outstanding, yet I still have to grovel in front of you. My mother and sister, they were exiled for bullying you, and I know it was their fault, so I erased the incident, only asking for you to return by my side. To get this jade peony hairpin for you, I traded away the military power and soldiers. I have sacrificed so much for you. Do you still think I don't love you as much as he does? Chu Xiaotian was too agitated. He even forgot to refer to himself as your highness. Every word revealed his affection for Soo-han. After hearing his speech, Soo-han tugged at her lips. It sounds like your highness loves me very much. She wants to show blatant favoritism, Lise. Chu Xiaoshan's expression softened, and he smiled, thinking Soo-han would give him a chance. Hainer, it's good that you understand. Your highness truly loves you, so don't marry him. Come back with your highness. He would always love her from now on. All right, if your highness will do one thing for me, then I will agree to your request, Soo-han said in a soft voice. Jifin, standing behind her, widened her eyes. Miss, how could you agree to go back with the Prince of Yangon County? Wasn't this just jumping back into the fire pit? As she was worrying, she heard Su Han say, "At the last banquet, I was humiliated by Miss Xia family. I want your highness to avenge me by killing her." What? The young Miss Xia family? How can that be? Between you women, it was nothing more than some harsh words. She might have been overly aggressive, but how can you harbor the intention to kill? This is not. Before he could finish saying, "Not right," Chu Xiaotian had already realized that something was amiss. Su Han said with a cold laugh, "Your Highness, do you still dare say you love me? At the previous banquet, when young Miss Xia family humiliated me, Song Qingyi didn't say another word and drew his sword for me. Had I not stopped him, young Miss Xia family would be nothing but bones now. Does your Highness still think you love me more than Song Qingyi does?" Just hearing that I was humiliated, Song Qingyi was willing to draw his sword and kill for me, no matter who that person was. And what are you thinking, your Highness? Your first thought is never for me, it is to accuse me, to counsel me. This is righteousness, the vision a regional prince should have. But it is not love. Love is to be willing to make enemies of the entire world for her sake. It's a blind and unwavering support. These are things Chu Xiaotian could never give her. If it had been before she met Song Qingyi, she might have been moved by the current Chu Xiaotian, even slightly muddled into wanting to be with him again. But she had met Song Qingyi, a man who loved her without looking back, who was willing to fight to the death to protect her, to cherish her. In front of Song Qingyi, Chu Xiaoshan's feelings for her were utterly insignificant. Your Highness, Su Han does not seek glory or wealth, nor a noble status. I only wish for someone to blatantly favor me, to cherish and protect me no matter what I do, and to shield me from the outside storms and frost with his body, ensuring that spring surrounds me at all times. After these words, Su Han took a deep breath. The night breeze was cool but carried a fresh scent. This time, Chu Xiaotian did not try to hold on to her. He looked at his empty hands, feeling extremely unwilling, even desperately wanting to grasp onto Su Han, but in the end, he did not take another step forward. He never knew what Su Han wanted was not the title of regional princess, not the praise of everyone, but his exclusive affection and partiality. Exclusive affection. Partiality. These two words, upon reflection, truly are beautiful. 2 days later, the great army returned to the capital. Chu Jinling led the civil and military officials to personally welcome them at the city gate. When he saw Chu Yihan approaching on horseback, he knelt down and proclaimed loudly, "Nephew congratulates the imperial uncle on his victorious return. Long live the imperial uncle. The 9th prince returns in victory. Long live your Highness. Your Highness is valiant." At the city gate, the cheers of the populace almost broke the sky, greatly admiring Chu Yihan's heroic demeanor. The citizens all followed the rules, kneeling by the roadside. No officials or soldiers blocked their way, and no chaos ensued. Wherever Chu Yihan passed, there was a neat line of kneeling obeisance. Foot washing massage. 2. Young Master Zhou, about my cousin's matter. Li Yao was interrupted by Zhou Chao before he could finish speaking. "Oh, Brother Yao, what matter are you talking about? I don't remember. And isn't it a bit too formal for you to keep calling me young Master Zhou?" Zhou Chao paused for a moment before saying this. Just considering Li Yao's relationship with Xiao Yang and Jiang Yu, Li Yao was on their side. Although there had been some conflicts before, they were minor issues. Upon hearing Zhou Chao's words, Li Yao was taken aback for a moment before bursting into laughter. "Ha, right, I was being narrow-minded. Oh, what are you two chatting about? You're laughing so happily." Chen Feiyang pushed the door open and walked in from outside, looking at Zhou Chao and Li Yao with some confusion. Liao asked with a faint smile, just chatting. Weren't you going to see Yang and Jiangyu? Why are you back so soon? Forget it, it's infuriating. I should have gone with them for the full spa treatment instead of just a simple massage like we had here. Chen Feiyang sighed and shook his head while speaking. His eyes, however, kept glancing back and forth between Zhou Chao and Liao, as if saying, why don't you ask me? Seeing Chen Feiyang's envious expression, the two exchanged glances, feeling curious about what had happened. Don't beat around the bush, just spill it. Don't keep us in suspense. Liao didn't indulge him, going straight to the point. Chen Feiyang cleared his throat and stopped playing games of questions and answers. He then recounted what he had seen and heard. It turned out that the foot treatment service at Chang'an Club had launched a new project, offering an experience of the luxurious lifestyle of ancient emperors. Xiao Yang and Jiang Yu happened to enjoy this service. There were not just one or two beautiful technicians but 4 of them for one person. They were not only dressed very provocatively but also provided exceptional service. 1 massaged the feet, 2 massaged the hands, and 1 even massaged the head. When he saw this scene, his eyes turned red. Zhou Chao could already imagine such a scene, although he didn't know the specifics. However, judging from the beautiful technicians who massaged them, it was evident that Xiao Yang and Jiang Yu were thoroughly enjoying themselves. Ahem, Zhou Chao, why don't we go for a foot wash too? Liao's eyes lit up as he looked at Zhou Chao. Ahem, I'll pass. The massage was already very comfortable. Zhou Chao replied. Liao's disappointment flickered in his eyes for a moment but disappeared instantly. Feiyang, I'll pass too. If you want to experience it, go ahead by yourself. After all, his main purpose today was to improve his relationship with Zhou Chao. If he abandoned Zhou Chao and Qin Feiyang to experience this special foot massage, wouldn't he be neglecting Zhou Chao again? If you're not going, then I won't go either. Qin Feiyang wasn't a fool, he naturally noticed some clues. Besides, there would be plenty of opportunities to experience it later, so there was no need to rush at the moment. Just as the 3 were about to lie down and rest while waiting for Xiao Yang and Jiang Yu, they saw the 2 of them walking and looking refreshed, especially Jiang Yu, who seemed to be walking on air. It seemed they had a great time. Hey, back already. Looks like everything was arranged well. Zhou Chao teased them. Hearing Zhou Chao's words, both of them stiffened. They had seen Chen Feiyang visit their room earlier, so they assumed Zhou Chao and Li Yao knew what services they had enjoyed. The thought of Zhou Chao accidentally revealing it later made them dread the idea of facing the consequences. Ahem, it's getting late, we should head back. Xiao Yang, as the elder brother, was the one everyone listened to. After a brief packing up, they took the elevator out of the Chang'an Club. In the parking lot, they exchanged a few words before preparing to go their separate ways. Xiao Chao, wait a moment, I need to talk to you about something, and Jiang Yu too. Just as Zhou Chao was about to get into his car, he heard Xiao Yang's voice and closed the car door, walking briskly over. Brother Yang, is there something else? Jiang Yu also approached. Xiao Yang glanced at Jiang Yu, then back at Zhou Chao, and said, Xiao Chao, tonight we'll just have a simple meal and chat over tea afterward, nothing else. After saying this, Xiao Yang felt his face flush with embarrassment. Hearing Xiao Yang's words, Zhou Chao immediately understood. It seemed Xiao Yang was worried he might inadvertently spill the beans when he got home. But thinking about it, Zhou Chao also understood Xiao Yang's concern. Whether it was the Xiao family or the Jiang family, they were quite strict in terms of upbringing, and the simplest rule was not allowing any mischief outside. If he accidentally let slip, they might end up being whipped with an 82 belt. Jiang Yu snapped out of his daze and said nervously, Xiao Chao, you mustn't tell Zhongli about this. Don't worry, I won't tell Zhongli. You two can rest assured. Zhou Chao reassured them. Hearing Zhou Chaos' assurance, Xiao Yang nodded. He knew Zhou Chao was reliable and wouldn't joke about such matters. Alright, let's head back. It's already 10 o'clock. Zhou Chao nodded and then got into his car, giving a nod to the two before driving away. Watching the Rolls-Royce merge into the traffic, Jiang Yu sighed. Who would have thought that the sapling from before has grown into a big tree now? Even I have to rely on his shade to shelter from the wind and rain. A big tree. He's already become a towering tree. If nothing unexpected happens, in the future, both of our families will follow Zhou Chaos' lead. Thinking of recent observations and some things his grandfather had hinted at, he understood that Zhou Chao was the future pillar of both the Xiao and Zhang families. How is that possible? Jiang Yu looked at Xiao Yang in shock, his mouth gaping wide enough to fit a big green mango. Xiao Yang didn't explain much, just patted his shoulder lightly and said, Your training in the special forces was also to temper your character, to grow up as soon as possible and shoulder responsibilities in the future. After saying this, Xiao Yang didn't pay much attention to the stunned Jiang Yu, just got into his car and drove away. A cold wind blew by, and Jiang Yu snapped out of his daze. He didn't know what he had realized, but there was something different in his eyes now, a sense of responsibility called duty. Looking up at the sky, he noticed snowflakes drifting down. Back at home, Zhou Chao found Zhongli still sitting on the sofa watching TV. You're back. Zhongli stood up from the sofa as soon as she saw Zhou Chao return. Hey, be careful. You should sit still on the sofa. Next time, don't stand up so quickly. Zhou Chao jogged over and pushed Zhongli back onto the sofa. I know. Ouch. Zhongli's smile twisted into a grimace. Hearing Zhongli's cry, Zhou Chao instantly felt his scalp tingle, his expression nervous as he asked, What's wrong, Ollie? Zhongli forced a smile and said, Brother Chao, don't worry, everything's fine. The baby just kicked me. As she spoke, she lovingly stroked her large belly. Upon hearing this, Zhou Chaos' originally tense heart immediately relaxed. He playfully extended his right hand to caress Zhongli's belly and said, Little one, if you keep kicking your mom's belly, when you come out, see how he'll deal with you. Zhongli chuckled heartily, her previous discomfort disappearing completely. Watching Zhou Chao press his ear against her belly, Zhongli couldn't help but reach out and stroke his head. Feeling the tender touch on his head, Zhou Chao lifted his head to look at Zhongli. Their eyes met, and both could see the anticipation for their baby in each other's eyes. The tragedy of the Imperial Palace lease. If you want to kill him, just do it. There's no need to perform for me, Chui Han said with an indifferent expression. He didn't care about the Empress' intention to kill Chu Mingyuan, nor did he intend to save him. Instead, his attention was drawn to the person lying on a bed placed beside the dragon throne. It was Chu Qingye. After months of no sighting, he seemed to be even more ill than Chu Mingyuan, his face as pale as a corpse's, froth at his mouth, and mumbling incoherently. Chui Han couldn't hear clearly, nor was he interested in listening anymore. Seeing that he was unmoved, the Empress raised her hand and stabbed a hole in Chu Mingyuan's arm. Ah! Ah! Chu Mingyuan cried out in agony, his expression distorted with pain. Unable to struggle, he could only shed tears while emitting pitiful screams. Chui Han set the Qingfeng sword on the ground, folded his arms, and spoke with the same indifference. Do you dare to plot the murder of the Emperor, wishing to die along with your son? No! The Empress screamed. Wild-eyed and disheveled, her appearance was ghastly, her gaze fervent and frenzied. I can die, the Emperor can die. Everyone in this world can die. But my son, he cannot. With one hand, she forcibly lifted the immobilized Chu Mingyuan, holding him as a threat to Chui Han. Chui Han, I want you to heal my ear. Your woman, Su Yingxue, she is a genius doctor. The court physicians in the palace and the doctors from the people can't heal what she can. She must be able to cure him. Chu Yihan's lips parted slightly, uttering just 2 words, dream on. Chu Qingye wasn't even worthy to carry Su Yingxu's shoes. And she was to heal him. Don't think that the emperor is useless now. You may not care about his life or death, but what about the subjects under the heavens? Don't they care? The empress was emotional, and, not controlling her strength well, she plunged the dagger deeper into Chu Mingyuan's body. Woo! Woo! Chu Mingyuan, unable to speak, could only let out even more piercing screams. No one would have imagined that the emperor, once so high above, had fallen to such a wretched state. Chu Yihan had no interest in wasting time with them and picked up his sword to leave. Stop! Chu Yihan. If you dare to walk out of here, I will kill the emperor. Then I will commit suicide with Ye. The people I have arranged outside the palace are already prepared. The news that you forced us, mother and sons, to our deaths will spread immediately, and by then, if you wish to secure this throne, dream on. The subjects under the heavens will not accept you, and more traitors will stir up chaos. The great Qing dynasty is troubled both internally and externally, it cannot withstand such turbulence. You must agree to my demand, let Su Yingxue cure Ye. The empress, holding the dagger, cried hysterically. Chu Yihan was her last hope. Only he could make Su Yingxue take action. Only Su Yingxue could save Ye, her beloved son. Mother, don't, Chu Qingye struggled to let out indistinct sounds. The empress understood, but her heart ached even more. She held Chu Qingye and wept ceaselessly, Ye, mother must save you. You must live. Mother can die. Mother can die 1,000 times over for you. But you must live. Ah! The empress was not the proud figure she once was. At that moment, she was just a powerless mother using the last of her strength to protect her beloved son. Chu Yihan looked at the empress and coldly replied to her, Your plan is not bad, but I, your highness, don't need to be threatened by you. Chu Yihan's indifference lease, why? Impossible. You can't be impervious to threats, unless you no longer wish to secure your throne. The empress pointed a dagger at Chu Yihan, her face twisted in ferocity. Chu Yihan's Qingfeng sword was raised, and with just the flash of its unsheathed blade, it knocked the dagger from the empress' hand. Clatter! On the black, glossy marble floor, it made a crisp sound. Chu Yihan walked up to her, looking down from above, Even if you 3 die, your highness' reputation will remain unharmed. The people outside the palace, under your command, are now in my control. Should any traitor cause chaos, I shall quell it myself. As for the internal and external troubles of the great Qing dynasty, his gaze grew even colder. Years of my effort have culminated not just in this throne. I have raised an army of 1 million strong soldiers. Across the 9 continents, as long as I live, no one will dare invade the great Qing dynasty, or else they will share the same fate as Qi state, annihilation. This time, Qi state's incursion into the territory of the great Qing dynasty will be repaid with their disappearance from the 9 continents within 3 years. The words of Chu Yihan drained all strength from the empress' body. She fell to the ground like a doll. Her plan had failed, and Chu Qingye was beyond saving. Chu Qingye heard this too, feeling angry, ashamed, and utterly disgraced. Chu Yihan's illustrious achievements only highlighted how incompetent this once proud prince was. It was an even greater blow to Chu Mingyuan. He used his last bit of strength to slump into the dragon throne. This was the throne he had schemed to take from his brother, having killed Chu Yihan's mother to secure it after years of plotting. But sitting on that throne for years, he never knew that Chu Yihan had amassed an army of 1,000,000 mighty soldiers. What a colossal force that was! With nothing but the throne, he failed to fulfill the emperor's duty to protect his nation and subjects. How empty was his reign on the dragon throne! How inept indeed! Tears of self-reproach and frustration slid from the corners of Chu Mingyuan's eyes. He closed his eyes and let out a breath. His body slowly slid down from the dragon throne. When Chu Yihan emerged, Su Yingxue had arrived as well. She was dressed in a crimson luo skirt, her hair neatly done up, with a jeweled golden hairpin peeking out, its red tassels swaying in the breeze, accentuating the smile in her eyes, making her even more radiant. She lifted her skirt and rushed toward Chu Yihan, intending to throw herself into his arms. But remembering they were in the palace, surrounded by many people, Su Yingxue gracefully curtsied instead. "Greetings, Your Highness. Congratulations on your return to court." Although it had been only a few days since she last saw Chu Yihan, in her heart, it felt like an entire season had passed. She couldn't wait to leap onto him, to cuddle and embrace him. Rise," he said. Chu Yihan's words felt like a bucket of cold water poured over her. Su Yingxue's heart chilled as she looked at Chu Yihan uncertainly. She wanted to ask if he was still angry about the Qin Mayan incident. She had thought it over and was ready to explain. She no longer wanted to hold a grudge against him. But Chu Yihan, looking completely worn out, said, "You are the princess. The harem is your responsibility. Go, pay a visit to noble consort Xiao." Su Yingxue responded with an "oh," and then Chu Yihan whispered a few matters of business into her ear for her to attend to. Without any complaints, Su Yingxue nodded, "I understand. I will go right away." But, Your Highness, she wanted him to wait for her to finish so that they could have a proper talk. The interesting noble consort Xiao Lise, Chu Yihan rubbed his tired brows and eyes. "Military affairs are numerous and I will have to stay in the military camp for a few days." That is to say, he wouldn't be returning to the prince's mansion to stay for these days. She didn't know whether he was truly that busy or if he was avoiding her. Su Yingxue always felt that Chu Yihan's aloofness towards her, seemingly there yet not, was as if he was avoiding something. "Auntie, let's go." Chu Jinling pursed his lips, glancing in the direction of the harem. He still had to accompany his young aunt to visit his mother. Inside noble consort Xiao's palace. On the luxurious and extravagant imperial consort's chaise lounge, noble consort Xiao reclined elegantly, her indolent glance exuding an imposing elegance. Upon seeing Su Yingxue enter, she slowly rose. "Her Majesty has seen the 9th princess consort. You are courteous." Noble consort Xiao's polite demeanor surprised Su Yingxue, who quickly stepped forward to support her. "Imperial consort, you are too kind." But noble consort Xiao lightly took her hand with a smile in her eyes. "Such proprieties are only proper. After all, the world will be the 9th prince's soon, and as princess consort, you will be above the entire harem. As for this consort, being lucky enough to survive is already good, so naturally I must be courteous towards you." What she said. It was as if after Chu Yihan ascended the throne, she, noble consort Xiao, would have to watch Su Yingxue's face. Su Yingxue forced a smile. "It may not be so. With the consort's insight, even if you become the Empress Dowager, no one would dare to offend you. Hence, you took the initiative to handle the issue at the palace gates involving the Empress people, sparing His Highness the trouble." Pleasing Chu Yihan was why he let her come see her. Her personal visit as the 9th princess consort was also to give noble consort Xiao peace of mind. Noble consort Xiao lifted her flowing silk veil, a charming fragrance wafting from within it. Her face bore a radiant smile, Her Majesty knows that the 9th Prince and Princess Consort are reasonable. In the future, my son and I will rely on the Emperor and Empress. She preemptively referred to them as the Emperor and Empress, something no one else would dare to do. But noble Consort Xiao was always calculating and easygoing, so Su Yingxue wasn't too surprised. With nothing else to do, she sat down and started chatting leisurely with noble Consort Xiao. With the consort's wisdom, I'm sure His Highness won't treat you or the Xiao family unfairly. Over the years, noble Consort Xiao had not opposed Chui Han, and the Xiao family had provided much convenience in military matters. Irrespective of her status, Chui Han would treat them well. Especially Chu Jinling. Su Yingxue's gaze fell on the handsome young man, his figure bathed in the sunlight that scattered golden sparkles on him, highlighting his already pale skin, making his features seem even more gentle and agreeable. Noble Consort Xiao picked up the scroll in her hand and lazily leaned back on her chaise lounge, her whole body emanating a noble aura. If it weren't for my age, I would have married the 9th prince. As for Linger, he too will have the destiny of an emperor. Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow, suddenly feeling the urge to laugh. With your Majesty's skill, if you had taken a fancy to the 9th prince, you might indeed have been a formidable rival. Noble Consort Xiao was different from those vulgar and cheap women who had fancied Chui Han before. If she started to make her moves and use her intellect, Su Yingxue wasn't sure she could handle everything. Taking her seriously, noble Consort Xiao said, "That's quite possible. If Linger were to become the heir to the 9th prince, he might now be. He wouldn't have the fate to become emperor. Mother, let go of this hope. In the past, the world belonged to father and 7th brother. In the future, it will belong to imperial uncle. As for me, I just want to write books and live a carefree life." Waiting for Chui Han Lease, why bother becoming an emperor? It's all worry and haste to an early grave. Isn't it better to live a long and healthy life with the one you love? Chu Jinling shattered noble Consort Xiao's fantasy, and she heaved a sigh. Never mind, I was just joking with your imperial aunt. Go play. Auntie, come play with me too. Mother and I are sick of all the glittering treasures in this palace, come on. Chu Jinling took Su Yingxue by the hand and left, not caring about how noble Consort Xiao was left behind in the palace. As Su Yingxue ran out of the palace with him, she asked with a curious expression, "You're just leaving your mother behind? Aren't you worried she'll be lonely?" In her mind, the women of the harem fought tooth and nail for favor and power. It was hardly an easy life. Of course, it wasn't easy for noble Consort Xiao to become a woman of the imperial palace for the sake of her family either. And her conversation with Su Yingxue was quite interesting. However, Chu Jinling quickly corrected her impression. My mother is never alone. Never alone. Su Yingxue narrowed her eyes slightly, looking at Chu Jinling with suspicion. Her gaze made Chu Jinling feel uneasy, but considering his father had served his time as emperor, he simply told Su Yingxue, "My mother has a secret passage in the palace through which she can leave. She doesn't care whether the emperor favors her or not, she enjoys her freedom on the outside, and honestly, she has more fun than my father ever could." In his opinion, his mother as imperial consort was living a life far happier than his father as the emperor. Surprise flickered in Su Yingxue's eyes. "Noble Consort Xiao has a tunnel. Wait. The crew that your cousin formed, it was to serve your mother, wasn't it? So capable, able to dig tunnels and burrow through anywhere. Digging a tunnel out of the imperial palace seemed like no tough feat for them. Right. After she gave birth to me and was promoted to imperial consort, her position was secure. And with all the money she had, why would she willingly confine herself to the palace for life? She's always been free-spirited and unrestrained," he said, casually flipping his hair with a satisfied smile on his face. Seeing his demeanor, Su Yingxue was no longer overly surprised by noble Consort Xiao's actions. After all, money can enable all manner of desires. Plus, noble consort Xiao lived such a clear and unrestrained life, which seemed to rub off on Chu Jinling as well. Jinling, be honest with me, when you were a child, did you ever sneak out of the palace with your mother to play? Of course. When I skipped classes and went to my mother's, she would take me to the gambling den. Together, we won quite a bit of silver. Who else do you think taught me how to gamble? Chu Jinling winked, making Su Yingxue even more envious. If only Long Shuli hadn't left so early, she might have enjoyed herself more than even noble consort Xiao. After leaving the palace, Su Yingxue returned to the 9th prince's mansion. Although Chu Yihan indulged her, letting her stay at the Marquis Manor or the prince's mansion, she was conscious of her status as a married woman, so she chose to remain at her husband's house, waiting for him to come back. The old steward was overjoyed to see her, and the whole prince's mansion wept tears of happiness in her presence for half an hour. She comforted each of them before returning to the courtyard she shared with Chu Yihan as newlyweds. Everything was kept just as it was on their wedding day, with the red silk and glass lanterns lining the courtyard glowing at dusk, a breathtaking sight. Su Yingxue lay on the wedding bed where the thoughtful steward had placed items like red dates and peanuts before her return, just like on the night of the wedding. Rolling on the bed and munching on red dates, Su Yingxue felt an increasing sense of loss. Chu Yihan hadn't returned, and she had no idea when he would. Do not suspect His Highness Lise, he hadn't wanted to see her these past few days. The military camp was a vital place, and given the lesson he had taught her previously when she rashly intruded, she didn't dare attempt it again. She could only wait in the prince's mansion. After 5 days passed, Su Yingxue still hadn't seen Chu Yihan and returned to the Marquis Manor. She needed to report Wu Jinyan's situation to her grandfather and, incidentally, inquire what Chu Yihan was busied with in the military camp. Su Qingji found her return somewhat strange. Why have you only come back to the manor today? Su Yingxue explained, I've been staying in the prince's mansion for a few days, hoping to wait for His Highness to return, but these days he has been busy in the camp and not even his shadow could be seen. Su Yingxue walked over and supported Su Qingzi's arm as they strolled together in the garden. The garden of the Marquis Manor was majestic and grand, with rocks and spring water, all very natural and refreshing. Especially since Su Qingzi's return, he grew fonder of the natural wilderness, planting many trees in the manor. As a result, there was an increased sense of wilderness, albeit with fewer birdsong and floral fragrances. Breathing in the fresh air of the woods, Su Qingji felt a great ease of mind. I only returned from the military camp yesterday. His Highness is working hard to reorganize the army. It's likely he decided to rest there to avoid the back and forth travel. As a military man, Su Qingji naturally had a deep understanding of these matters. But Su Yingxue still felt uneasy inside. I always feel that His Highness is avoiding me, perhaps because I bothered him last time. Don't talk nonsense. Su Qingji reproached her firmly, His Highness has put a lot of effort into you and our Su family. If you doubt him again, I will have to teach you a lesson. The tone of Su Qingzi's voice was not loud, but it was very serious. What's troubling His Highness now is that there are still spies in the army who have not been found out yet. This is a major hidden danger. Even though His Highness has returned to the court, Qi state is inevitably going to be incorporated into the territory of the great Qing dynasty. Now that the Prince of Liao is dead, it seems like His Highness is withdrawing the troops, but there are still 50,000 soldiers guarding the border. Once he ferrets out those spies, His Highness will definitely strike hard. With Su Qingzi's emphasis on the last word, Su Yingxue suddenly understood, so that's it. Isn't His Highness then quite exhausted? Su Qingji patted her hand, so, don't take it to heart. His Highness is currently investigating the military spies, not because he has any dissatisfaction with you. Moreover, in the future, Su Qingji glanced around, this heavy responsibility of the world will also fall on His Highness' shoulders. You should bear this in mind. Su Yingxue nodded. I understand, Grandpa. She continued walking with Su Qingji, feeling a deeper sense of understanding for Chuihan, yet she missed him even more. But as they walked, they encountered Lu Ying. By her side, Su Hao supported her, asking quietly, Miss Lu, do you feel your injury is any better today? Lu Ying yearned to lean on him, and even though Su Hao was very proper, she took the excuse of her inconvenience to hold on to his arm, consenting to move forward slowly. This scene greatly angered Su Yingxue. She thought of Wu Jinyan in the back courtyard of the Thousand Jiao Pavilion and wanted to go up and pull Lu Ying away. Understanding her thoughts, Su Qingji led her around a corner, directing them to another part of the garden, and also showed his concern. Grandpa asked you to look into some things. Did you find out? What happened between that miss from the Wu family and your brother? Su Yingxue bit her lip. She knew what had happened, but if she told her grandpa now, he might definitely refuse to allow Wu Jinyan to marry Su Hao. So she said, Sister Jinyan is ill. When I went to see her the other day, she looked unwell. It's probably because brother hurried back, and she didn't have the strength to cope, which must have led to some misunderstanding between them. Lu Ying's design lease. Su Qingji furrowed his brow, a hint of difficulty spilling into his eyes. This is going to be problematic. Originally, I had the intention to change the marriage arrangement for your brother. Change the marriage arrangement? Su Yingxue exclaimed in alarm. Grandpa, why would you have such a thought? Could it be Lu Ying? The one entangling Su Hao now was none other than Lu Ying. But if she married brother, then Wu Jinyan. Su Qingji nodded, his aged voice carrying a trace of helplessness. Originally, Grandpa had no intention to interfere in your brother's marriage. The miss from the Wu family that he chose, I have inquired about her, too. Although the Wu family is no more, that young girl is a tenacious and kind-hearted good miss, and she still supports the Fufeng Center. She is compassionate towards the poor and weak and also runs a loft. She's quite capable. However, your brother, he made a mistake, and he must not disappoint that young girl, Lu Ying. Brother made a mistake. What happened to him? A bad feeling suddenly seized Su Yingxue's heart. Your brother, while defending Bamboo Leaf Pass, became acquainted with Lu Ying. Lu Chongming, who is the commander at Bamboo Leaf Pass, treated your brother with great courtesy, and your brother then had marital relations with that Lu Ying. He came clean about this to me on the way back. The Su family's family discipline was strict, and if Su Hao had deliberately erred, Su Qingji would certainly have punished him severely. But Su Hao claimed he was set up by someone, which led him to lose his senses. Considering Bamboo Leaf Pass is far at the border, an investigation would likely be difficult. Therefore, Su Qingji didn't think about punishing him but went personally to discuss the matter with Lu Chongming and his daughter. After all, although Su Hao was trapped, he had also ruined Lu Ying's chastity. And there was Lu Ying, kneeling in front of him, expressing her deep affection for Su Hao and vowing her heart to him for this life, even willing to become a concubine if necessary just to marry him. Lu Chongming also understood his daughter's feelings and didn't try to obstruct much. In Su Qingzi's eyes, the father and daughter appeared quite tolerant and sincere. If it were any other general's family, Su Hao would likely already be ruined, and the Marquis Manor shamed. However, Su Yingxue furrowed her brows tightly upon hearing this. Grandpa, we haven't thoroughly understood this Lu Ying. If brother is to marry her hastily, I'm afraid he wouldn't be willing. As for Sister Jinyan, let's wait for her to discuss it with brother. If they don't want to part, then Grandpa, it might be best to refuse Lu Ying's kind offer. There are many ways to make amends. Su Qingji had originally thought that if Wu Jinyan and Su Hao didn't get along well, and if Su Hao agreed, he could marry Lu Ying. But now, hearing what Su Yingxue said, he weighed his options and decided that Su Hao's happiness was more important. If Lu Ying were to suffer and become Su Hao's concubine, it wouldn't hurt to treat her generously in the Marquis manner later on. Thus, Su Qingji no longer worried about Su Hao's affair. After all, both he and Su Yingxue, the brother and sister, were people of strong resolve. Having returned to his study, he immersed himself in military books once more. Su Yingxue lingered outside the garden. She needed to talk to Su Hao about the matter concerning Wu Jinyan. Jilan had returned with her and after gathering some information, reported to her, Miss Han said that since the Lu family doesn't have a residence in Jiangdu City, that's why Miss Lu Ying is recuperating in our Marquis manor. And her father, General Lu, has been staying in the military camp. This arrangement was approved by the old general, and Miss Lu Ying has been pestering the eldest young master every day. With the eldest young master's good nature and considering her injuries, he has not rejected her. After speaking, Jilan looked puzzled. Our family's eldest young master, although gentle, is certainly not a man easily entangled by a woman. Now, with this Lu Ying, the servants in the manor all think she's going to become our young madam. Their child Lise, the position of the young madam at the Marquis manor is not one that just anyone can casually assume. A sharp glint flickered in Su Yingxue's eyes. She had no good feelings for Lu Ying to date, and harbored deep suspicions towards her. Even though Lu Ying had taken a knife for her, during the days they spent in the cave, she knew Su Hao's heart wasn't with her, yet she still clung to him desperately, even deliberately losing the handkerchief Wu Jinyan had given Su Hao. She had clearly warned her of the handkerchief's significance. The setup against Su Hao at the Bamboo Leaf Pass remains to be investigated. Su Yingxue waited for Su Hao to send Lu Ying back to her room, and then waited for him at the courtyard gate. "Brother!" Su Yingxue called out softly. Su Hao, in low spirits, wore a saddened look on his handsome face. Only when he saw Su Yingxue did a light appear in his eyes. "Sister, you're back. How was your time at the prince's mansion? Has His Highness been treating you well?" After returning, he had been suspended pending investigation. Although the prince had not overly pursued his lapse in responsibility, he had been instructed not to return to the military camp for the time being. His only fear was that his own troubles might adversely affect Su Yingxue's standing in Chu Yihan's heart. With a smile in her eyes and a face as blooming as the peach blossoms of spring that carpeted the mountains and fields, Su Yingxue reassured, "Brother, you don't need to worry. His Highness loves me and won't let anyone affect our feelings. So you should stop blaming yourself too." Reassured by her words, Su Hao felt relieved. Remembering that Su Yingxue was close with Wu Jinyan, he couldn't help asking, "Have you visited Sister Jinyan since you've been back?" Su Yingxue nodded honestly, "I've visited her. I urged her to start taking her medicine and eating. With Sister Han's concern over these past days, her health should gradually improve." "And her child?" Su Hao urgently wanted to ask about the child, but the rest of the words choked in his throat, unable to be voiced. Su Yingxue understood that the child was a pain in both their hearts, but it was a matter that needed to be resolved. Sister Jinyan couldn't bring herself to terminate the pregnancy. "Brother, about her and you," Su Yingxue's eyes queried. He was filled with a sense of powerlessness and defeat, and even his obsidian-like eyes had lost their usual luster. He sat dejectedly under the porch. "That child makes me feel so incompetent. If only I had noticed her arrival, if only I could have protected her, she wouldn't have experienced such an ordeal. Later, I didn't take care of her promptly and instead yelled at her, lost my temper with her." Su Hao was full of regret. His many years of affection with Wu Jinyan had become tainted due to his momentary impulse. "Brother still loves Sister Jinyan, but brother, I must remind you, if there is this child, you and Sister Jinyan will need to consider it very carefully." As the legitimate daughter of the Marquis household and now the 9th Princess Consort, Su Yingxue was all too clear that a woman pregnant with another man's child could never secure her position as the mistress of a household. The child would be a lifelong stain. She and the child would both suffer greatly. I failed to protect her. If she wishes to keep the child, I will not stop her, but Su Hao's wife, in this life, must be only her. Su Hao's eyes were resolute, heavy like a 1,000-pound rock within. Unshakable. Encouraged by Su Yingxue, Su Hao gathered up his courage and went to the 1,000-jiao pavilion to see Wu Jinyan. Wu Jinyan's health seemed to have improved, her complexion appeared rosier under the sunlight. Having not left the house for months, she now stood in the courtyard, letting the sunlight bathe her, feeling the warmth of early spring. He can accept her child lease, she stretched out her hand, and a petal fell into her palm. The petal had already withered considerably, with only half an inch left intact, showing how delicate and beautiful it had once been. Wu Jinyan felt a sudden sinking in her heart, she was just like this petal. She had thought she could bloom beautifully on her own after breaking free from the constraints of her family, but in the end, she couldn't withstand the ravages of time. Yenner, even though there's sunshine, the weather is still quite chilly. You should wear an extra piece of clothing when you go out. The man's voice, smooth as pearls and jade, rang out, and his slender fingers draped a piece of clothing over Wu Jinyan, bringing her a surge of warmth. Wu Jinyan instinctively shielded her belly, wanting to avoid him. Yenner. Su Hao pulled her back, as if afraid of hurting her, he just gently held her hand, don't go. I came today to talk to you in detail about the child in your belly. Wu Jinyan's face turned pale. About the child, do you still want me to get rid of it? I do not, I won't let you do that. If you can't bear to, then keep it. I will raise him as our child, Su Hao hurriedly revealed his plans, fearing she would flee. Our child. Wu Jinyan's heart trembled fiercely, her eyes wide with disbelief. The child. You still want to marry me? Of course. Our marriage was already agreed upon, do you still want to back out? Su Hao's grip tightened, as if he feared Wu Jinyan would retreat, and he wanted to lock her in his embrace. Wu Jinyan trembled gently, but this child's origins are unclear, I don't even know who that person is, you don't need to know. Su Hao growled softly, a hint of bloodshot crossing his eyes. The next moment, however, he hugged Wu Jinyan tightly, his voice deep and powerful, that person will never appear in front of you again. From now on, you are the young madam of Marquis Manor, and your child is the son of Marquis Manor. Wu Jinyan shook her head desperately, not daring to believe, this cannot be. If it is like this, it can be. Jinyan, believe me, there's nothing, no one that can separate us. Su Hao's sturdy arms embraced Wu Jinyan, the force strong yet careful not to make her uncomfortable due to her pregnancy. Leaning in his arms, Wu Jinyan could no longer hold back her tearful eyes. Su Hao. I'm sorry. If only she had told him earlier, when she found him at Bamboo Leaf Pass, maybe she wouldn't have encountered such an incident. There is nothing to apologize for, Jinyan. It's my fault for not protecting you well. Now that we both have returned from Bamboo Leaf Pass, let's forget the unpleasant memories of that place. Su Hao gently stroked Wu Jinyan's eyebrows and eyes, the smile on his lips tender. Wu Jinyan leaned in his embrace and talked with Su Hao for a long time. Spending these days shut in her room, the suffocating depression she felt was all poured out. She believed the sunlight tomorrow would surely be brilliant. Seeing the two of them reconcile, Su Yingxue also felt very relieved. Standing to one side, Su Han, with eyes like precious gems, was slightly incredulous. Although I had thought that Su Hao and Jinyan's feelings for each other were beyond comparison, his acceptance of Jinyan's child was truly unexpected. Affected by Su Yingxue, Su Han's thinking had gradually modernized. But she hadn't forgotten where she was, the Marquis Manor, a place strict with rules and rights. Su Hao's ability to accept a child not of his own blood showed how deeply he loved Wu Jinyan. For the sake of love, he was willing to disregard everything. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.